Are we in the middle? Are we in the middle? Hello and welcome, guys, to another episode of the Good Place series. I think we're at episode 23 or 24, and I'm still in Valencia, and I'm having an amazing time. And I'm super happy that Mr. Ramon had time for me today to pick a public bench here in Valencia. So welcome to this series to talk about life and the place you live in. I already know that you live in multiple places, so I want to hear everything about it. I want to hear about your work, about what you do. So I'm gonna hand it to you. Quickly introduce yourself, and then we kick it off.
Thank you, Robin. It is a pleasure to be with you here today in this fantastic bench in this public park in Valencia. So my name is Ramon Marrades. I'm currently the Director of Placemaking Europe, a foundation and NGO based in Amsterdam but working all around Europe. And I'm a born Valencian, so I'm very happy to be here sharing a bit of the story of my hometown.
Yeah, so actually I don't know what excites me most, that the work you do, or that you're like a born and raised Valencian, because I have not met one. So you're the first real local, born and raised that I meet in this beautiful city. How is it to live, and how is it to be growing up in Valencia? You can hold, by the way.
Yeah. Well, this is a city that changed a lot, I guess, in the last years. So I have the memories probably that I have of my childhood are completely different. I think I was growing when I was a kid in one of the worst periods city-wise in the city, because probably the 90s. I'm born in 1986, so growing in the 90s as a kid. That was, I guess, the worst period if we think about public space in Spanish cities.
Okay.
So that was the peak of car-centric development in cities. So I basically remember leaving my house, getting into a bus to go to my school that was a bit far away from the city, staying there during the day, and then getting back and being enclosed in the apartment. And sometimes when I was meeting friends, we were going to another apartment. So it was not that common that we were enjoying public spaces. There were some that were great, like the Sturia river park that we are, but that were for special days, right? On Saturdays or on Sundays, we could go with parents to enjoying public space, but more sort of the daily life was quite enclosed. And I think that also influenced a bit how I develop as an urbanist, because I didn't want that for the kids of the following generations.
So there were no playgrounds or anything outside offered to children here in Valencia?
Yeah, they were. I think they were, but they were not enough. Clearly not enough. And so it was very common. So we got fantastic playgrounds in the school I went to. So actually my parents picked up that school because it was in the middle of a natural area with orchards and farms, and there was sport facilities, and it was very outdoorsy. But the contradiction is that I had to leave the city to go to that school that was great, because my parents felt that the neighborhood school was too gray, right? It only had a basketball and a football court, but not very natural environment. So that's why I was sent to that school, that it was great during the daytime. We were outside, we were with our crops. It was a particularly innovative school, so it was a cooperative of teachers. It was very progressive, so that was good, I guess. But the big contradiction is that at 5 p.m. when I was done, or at 4 p.m. I had to take a bus. I was delivered to my parents' place, and I spent the rest of the time inside. So they were some playgrounds, but I remember them being a bit sad, right?
And this is funny because one of my observations is that there is now a kids' playground on every corner, almost. There's so many playgrounds, unbelievable. I have a kid now, so I'm looking for these kind of playgrounds, and now that you find them everywhere. and they're all like branded in some way, with like specific colors. So there's been a lot change since '86.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think like that's been probably one of the main victories of more progressive sort of urban development tendencies to bring back the kids to the street, because that was something that was clearly happening. So my parents were playing on the street, on the street. The sons and daughters of my generation are playing on the street again, but we weren't doing that much. We were going to play soccer in some places, but it was not that common. Also because too many cars, because of safety. But it changed a lot. Let me connect it with another story, because one of my first, when I started working professionally before moving into government and then to Placemaking Europe, I opened up a little like urbanism office in the city center with a couple of architects that were friends and a designer. We were very young. We jumped out from doing our masters, so we say, okay, let's open an office. Let's try to do things differently, and we decided to do it in the old town, in the Barrio del Carmen, because we thought, okay, that's a place that we should revitalize somehow. And it was a tiny place, but we were organizing cultural events, screenings, exhibitions.
Like bottom up?
Yeah, absolutely, bottom up. But one of the things that we did that was very interesting is we started to work with a group of parents that wanted to raise their kids in the old city of Valencia. And that was rather new, because the old city of Valencia was a fantastic partying place and cultural place, but the common thing to do was when parents were like, when couples were getting kids, they were moving to other neighborhoods that were more suitable to grow kids. But then this group of parents at that time I'm referring to 2012 or something like that, like 10 years ago, they said, okay, we want to raise our kids here in the neighborhood, and we started to create like bottom-up parks, bottom-up pocket parks, and like some of them now they are playgrounds. But I also remember that there was one of the squares, it's called Plaza del Carmen, that it was considered to be unsafe. It was considered to be like, I don't know, a bit of drug dealing, a bit of people drinking, not a nice place for kids to play. And we decide not only doing pop-up, but we decide to consciously reconquer that with the parents and kids. So we try to be, okay, if we had enough parents going there, we will take over. And nowadays we go to Plaza del Carmen and it's full.
And get the signatures.
But now it's full of kids playing. But I'm one of the things that it makes me more happier is to see kids playing in the Barrio del Carmen, because it was completely different 50 years ago.
And it's not only kids playing, you also see it's a meeting point for parents as well. You see they all hang around, and it's because every playground now that I see are closed off, right? They have a fence, and then you see the parents standing around it, and they all socialize. So it really has a neighborhood function.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, wow.
And
So
I'd
you
say like one of the spontaneous better commercial innovations in Spain, and particularly in Valencia, is that there are always good entrepreneurs that open a cafe next to the playground with outdoor tables and seating, so the parents can happily have a beer while their kids are playing. So you can see like those cafes are always full of parents while the kids are over there enjoying themselves.
So when it comes to real estate, those shops and places next to
I imagine
playground.
that the rent is fairly high, but probably maybe the real estate agents didn't realize that yet, but the bar owners for sure did.
That's an interesting insight. Yeah, very good. Or vice versa, is that when you open up shop and you see there is space or room for a playground, try to open one. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But next to that, there is one of the things that I really like the most is like seeing families also enjoying both public space and culture, and seeing this even like concerts in public space or sport activities where parents can be there with kids and not having sort of a segregated life. It's very nice.
Yeah. You think, since you grew up here, you see many people stay in Valencia, or is there a tendency that they move out, or I don't know?
No, we do. There is an issue about that actually. So Valencia is a mid-sized city. We are roughly the same size of Amsterdam, but this is not a financial center, not the center of the country. And it is a city that,
is
on the
Madrid.
one hand, which is Madrid, Barcelona is also a bit attraction pole, so we are the third city in Spain. It was fairly common for people to leave. My generation, I still have more than half of my friends living abroad. It is difficult for the city to provide employment opportunities for a lot of people. That actually, a lot of people left after the big crisis of 2008 to find jobs in the Netherlands, in Germany, in UK. Most of them didn't return, and still it's not that there are not many high-level employment opportunities in the city yet. So it's a very service-oriented city, which is okay. But also the issue that it's now attracting a lot of international people to come here on holidays or to work remotely, which could be a good thing, but also it is a bit dangerous because rents are becoming very, very high. So I'd say that nowadays the city is in a bit of a cross point because it is improving a lot in public space or in terms of cultural programming, but it should provide affordable housing and employment opportunities for the ones that left and for the ones that want to stay.
But I think that's also what cities like Amsterdam and The Hague, and that's my reference point, or even in the Netherlands, are facing. You know, this whole housing problem, that rent is getting too expensive. Buying a property is almost impossible with mid salaries. So this cross point is here in Valencia is a very important one, because I also heard there are a lot of expats coming to Valencia, and of course, not to be negative about expats, but of course, it's not even Valencia. I think it's also the region. What I've heard, that they drive up prices, so it will be also more difficult to live in certain neighborhoods. So Valencia has the size of Amsterdam, perhaps, but also needs to grow and maybe build or expand its its physical presence, I think, right? What I'm interested as well is that they also say Valencia is what they've been called in the green capital of Europe. And that's mostly because of the place we're in, because of Turia.
I think this was probably the backbones of the application. So, you know that cities apply to become the green capital of Europe, and there's the EU Commission that selects who is going to be the one, and they have to apply with a comprehensive program, both in terms of programming, what they're suggesting to do during that year, but more particularly what they are doing policy-wise and what they've done policy-wise. And I think we are probably in the best icon that the city has in terms of greening.
Which you see here at the background. Which I would move here in a heartbeat for just having a park like Turia around the corner and go for running. It's amazing. It's an amazing concept. And because you already mentioned to me that finally they chose to make it a park.
Yeah.
But this could have been a highway.
Yeah, I can tell you the story a bit. So this is an old riverbed. And during the 60s, in the 50s, there was a big flood in the city that was very, very damaging. And during the 60s, the solution to prevent this flood to happen again was something that we cannot imagine nowadays, because it was a huge engineering development. So what the authorities decided at the time, and that was not a democracy at that moment yet. We still have a dictator till the year 1975. So what the authorities decided was to deviate the riverbed, destroying a bunch of natural areas and good quality crops in the south of the city. And the place that we are, the old riverbed, become useless because there was not water running here anymore, and become a bit of a third place, but no man's land at the same time, right? So it was a place where there was informal housing, kids playing soccer, there was even cattle, there were like informal crops, like it was sort of like everything possible and happening here. And then if we jumped into the 70s, like the car-centric period. No, they need the starting point of the car-centric period. The idea was to use it as a highway. So having a huge highway that would cross the city, like 6 kilometers through the city, and luckily that was stopped. So beginning of the 70s, almost like recovering democracy in Spain, civil society was very strong, neighborhood association was very strong, that the civil society in the city said, we want it public, we want it green. And when the first elected democratic government was elected, the mayor and their team said, okay, let's do it like that. And they actually developed a master plan and a project to transform it in a public space in a very rational, non-crazy way. So very even pragmatic, even austere, but they transform it and it evolved. And I think it's because it was doing in segments, but it naturally evolved as probably the best public park as I know. And it's not because I'm Valencian, I'm very critical about the urban development policies, but this particular place, I think it's outstanding.
You've seen it transform.
Yes, I've seen it transform, and I also it also works in itself as a nice metaphor of the different urban development phases, right? Because we saw in here the crazy development, like engineering development of the 60s, the bad idea of the 70s, the good mall, I'd say progressive or even democratic ideas of the end of the 90s, or eight of the 80s and the 90s, that was providing access, providing infrastructure. That's because there are a lot of cultural and sports facilities here, trying to provide the same to every neighborhoods. And then we jump in the 2000, and the model is completely different. It's about big shiny buildings, and even at the end of the riverbed we have the Calatrava complex, that it's also a good symbol of these different ways of developing the cities that happened in the 2000s, that were shiny but not very anchored in the city's needs, maybe, and also they create a lot of financial and democratic tensions in cities.
Interesting how that evolved and what's facing now. Okay. Yeah, because this part of the town at this side of Turia is completely different than how it is at the end of Turia. It's a completely different Valencia. Yeah, interesting.
But there is one thing that it's good, and during COVID we saw it. In Valencia in Spain there was more restrictive COVID laws than in the Netherlands, for instance, and people was mandated to stay around 1 kilometer around their homes. But interestingly enough, the river Turia was covering almost 70% of the population of the city, because it really connects every neighborhood, it really connects every social class. So it is.
And also because of its shape, right? Because
absolutely.
It goes, Okay, wow. You don't even realize, huh? Yeah, that's true. We didn't have that rule of 1 kilometer, by the way.
But imagine in other cities without this, no? Barcelona or Madrid was completely different, but we were lucky to have this sort of an artery. And also, interestingly enough, because people start to use the riverbed as a public gym, for instance, people doing yoga classes and stuff, but also dancing and enjoying. We also people really rediscovered how to use that, and now it has much of an intense use. And there are few spaces in the city where you can really see people with every background, from Ecuadorian families dancing the traditional dancing to people doing Tai Chi, or it is very, very diverse.
It really brings the city together. Yeah, interesting. That's cool. That how that park not just has a social function for you individually, but also as a community, because it mixes things up. Yeah, it brings everybody together. It makes it very diverse. Wow. Ever thought of making how a park creates a diverse, Valencian community?
When we work in placemaking projects, we like to we like to push ourselves to think better about who is there and who is missing. No, and always ask yourself who is there and who is missing. And there are few places actually in cities when you can see almost everyone, right? From homeless people to very rich people that's doing certain sports. I think this is one of the few, and also because it varies from segment to segment, obviously connects neighborhoods with different characteristics, and you have from the fancy opera till the ping pong tables over here, right?
Yeah, so it's very important to to know and what to launch next to a park on the entire streak of the green the
But
Green Heart.
also, what I want to say that also this is sort of politically dependent and it's not given, right?
Yeah.
So this is very, as I said, it is a symbol of different sort of development waves with different ideas
Yeah.
in the background. But here we are seeing, for instance, that there is a few homeless communities that are using this to be there, and now that we have a different local government that is supported by the far right,
Yeah.
what they are doing is like banning NGOs that work with homeless here, and actually they wanted to put little lakes where they are sleeping with hostile architecture idea to prevent them to stay. So I mean, this inclusivity is not granted. It needs to be needs the government to be a steward of that, right? And I'm a bit I'm very disappointed, and I'm against this sort of policies because I don't think that they are doing any harm.
Yeah. I mean, hostile architecture is also. It's not only in Spain or here in
Absolutely,
Valencia.
but
It's everywhere.
It feels very sad, this particularly in this place, which is an icon of inclusivity. Even here, hostile architecture is coming.
Yeah, true.
So it's important to don't take anything for granted. Like, we have to protect, we have to be active as a society, and it can.
And sometimes it's more like a short-term solution,
Absolutely.
instead of a long-term.
It is not even a solution. I think it is proving all around that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes like the wrong ideas are the winners in the public debate. We all know that very well.
Yeah. And sometimes you're lucky because otherwise this would be a highway. So, you know, more power to the people. Yeah?
Exactly.
Quickly switching to you, Ramon. Why do you still live in Valencia? Why haven't you left?
I've been coming and going for a while. So I did my master's. I did my bachelor. I started here, finished it in Barcelona. Did my master's in Utrecht. Sorry, I did economics and geography in Utrecht, and I was about to stay, but at that moment it was 2011, and the city was a bit. You remember the Occupy Wall Street, Arab Spring here. It was the Indignados movement. There was like something happening in the society, and I thought, okay, I'd like to come back to be part of that, and I did. And then I worked from 2016. I worked for the government, for the local government, for 4 years, which was an amazing experience.
Here in Valencia.
Here in Valencia. But after that, when I left government, I left again. So now I work for Placemaking Europe, that we have our organization in Amsterdam. I spend a lot of time in Berlin. And now, after some years of decompressing from the city, I thought, okay, I like to be close to my family and to some of my friends and be back again. So I've been the last month already back here. The last year, I guess, already.
Yeah. It's funny how that then goes. You need some time away to reappreciate perhaps where you're from. Is Valencia also, you think, a city where you could grow old, or?
I think I will be always connected here, but I also devoted. The thing is, I was not only in local government. I was. Before an activist, I also founded an NGO that was trying to think about the future of the city, that was called Valencia Vibrant. I'm part of many activism organizations. I even wrote a book which is called The New Guide to Valencia. Not that new anymore because it's 10-year old, but I can send it to you. But it is a story of the city told by some of the people that were active transforming it, and I will remain being an activist of the city. I work so much, and I will work so much to make it better. So what I was mentioning about hostile architecture, about the far right, about housing and affordability, are things that concern me a lot, and I'm sure that I will try to fight for the right causes. And of course, I will have one foot here till I grow old, but I think I always will have another foot in the rest of Europe. For sure.
Wow. Watch out, people. Ramon coming your way. Cool. And because this series, of course, is called Good Place, could be looked at in different ways, different perspectives, from a personal point of view, from a placemaking point of view in this context. What do you think is let's start off with what's a good place to you?
Yeah, I could. There are many conditions, obviously, and for me, it's impossible to separate, to split my personal feeling for my profession. So I'm almost looking it also from a professional point of view. Let me use a Spanish metaphor. You know that we are. Like a lot of Europeans make fun of us because we sleep siesta, so we apparently like take a nap after lunch. It's not something very common anymore, but still like in our storytelling somehow, or other when the prejudices from the others. But siesta in public space, for me, it is an extremely good metaphor. A good place is a good place is a place where you can sleep, feeling safe, surrounded by others, and I find it a super powerful metaphor because sleeping on street can be on one side something that is terrible and forced, and it is a failure of society when people doesn't have a home. But when an ordinary people is freely sleeping, that means that there is a comfortable, calm place where you feel safe. No, you are not going to get robbed because you are vulnerable where you are sleeping. And when it happens in a diverse community, not in an enclosed, like private area, in a condo, when it happens in a public space, it is a symbol of something super powerful. And I guess like here in the Turia riverbed, you can really like with this weather after lunch, take a short nap and feel safe. And that's sort of the ultimate goal of a proper public space: diversity plus safety, and that means that you can calmly take a nap.
So a good place is diversity plus safety. Yeah.
I think so.
The place where you can take a siesta nap.
But it's two things together, because like we all are living in a European environment that it's getting nasty somehow, right? And safety is used most of the times, or some of the times, in a wrong way, an excuse for nasty policies or to prevent diversity, and drawing a correlation that is not always right? So I guess public space should be a combination of both.
Beautiful. We had safety pass by many times in conversations, but everybody has their own connotation to safety. But the mix, like a bit of a formula with this beautiful metaphor, makes completely sense.
But I guess it's something that I use sometimes. Think about your case. Will you feel safe? Will you feel okay taking a nap in this public space? And obviously safety is always a perceived thing, but it is it works well as a metaphor.
I think I could take a nap here in Turia Park.
We are obviously like lucky because we are guys, we are white, right? And it's easier for us. Maybe it's not the same if you are a teenager girl, or if you are a migrant that doesn't have papers and the police is around and are chasing them, or now that the homeless people is being policed, right? But we are on the lucky side, but we have to think, is it this safe for everyone? But for sure it is a diverse place. And I think one of the strong assets that Valencia, it is a very safe city by any standards of data that we have, something that we should protect. So that's also important, not to surround to these claims or messages that are just simply wrong, right? That are saying this is unsafe. No, this is not unsafe. The data doesn't say that.
So would you say that this is, because we're also heading towards the end of the episode, I always like to close off with like a piece of wisdom that somebody maybe likes to share. So you would say that this is your mission as well, to within placemaking and you as an urbanist to always make sure that balance is in place.
Yes.
And which also feeds the activism. But what is it you could share with others, what they could do to make their place a good place when it comes to placemaking and these kind of things? I mean, there should be also perhaps some good citizenship or responsibility, something they could pick up on.
Yes, let me also use this riverbed as a metaphor, but I think it works well. And there is a lot of learning from the placemaking perspective. But the first advice or the first learning is to use the opportunity, because the riverbed was empty, was non-use, and some intelligent people saw the opportunity to transform it in a park. So there are always opportunity spaces in cities that needs creativity and imagination. And sometimes those are from one generation, generational, that the riverbed, sometimes they are smaller, like a little corner that can be transformed in a playground, or an old ground floor that can be opened up as whatever, right? So think about opportunity spaces, be an activist, obviously, and create alliances. So here they were the neighbors that say, okay, like
Speak
that's
up.
what we want, right? And that meant also mapping the needs. So they needed sports facilities, they needed playground, right? So mapping the needs, understanding the context. And then on the side of governments, be smart, rational, but also austere, no? It means like sometimes responding it, not doing everything yourself as the government and creating a meaningful relationship with the citizens. But the last one is also stewardship, keeping it programming, evolving it, and authentic at the same time, because public space development is always a never-ending process. And think about who is there, who is missing, and how this can serve the community.
So
and
as a citizen, you need to speak up. You need to speak up what you want.
yeah, obviously that will be like
And take
subject
part,
also
take part,
of
and
another
take part.
conversation. But obviously take part, but also use the places with your own, like vote with your own feet. Use the places, take part of whichever at the level that you have capacity, but don't be silent.
I like that. Don't be silent is very much a closing statement from an activist like you, Ramon. Awesome. I'm going to say thank you, Ramon, for your time and your piece of wisdom. Very inspiration. I know now more about Valencia than just being someone who lives here, also from like how it evolved. And I think it also made me more appreciate what it is today. But it's also important to keep it that way, right? Yeah. That's why you're here. Thank you very much. I'm going to say adios, chicos y chicas.
Adeu.
Adeu. Is that this Valencian?
Yes. Adeu.
Ciao.